Good morning. I am here with Moein for our third conversation. And Moein is a friend that I met recently through another friend, Nick, from Philadelphia, who is sort of a turbocharged human being that has so much always going on that's pretty fascinating. And I knew that whoever he knew would probably be the same. And I have spent some time now with Moein, who is on a how long is the venture you've been on? Is it going to last 7 years? Is that what it was?
Yeah, about 8 years. Yeah,
10 years?
8 years. Like, I mean, it's,
8 years.
yeah, like a calculating voice, like about the 8 years.
So if you listen through the first episode with Moein, we talked about this commitment he made to 30 days on, 40 days off, meaning during 40 days, he does nothing, no caffeine, no drugs, no stimulants, no mind-altering anything, including sugar. And then for 30 days, he allows himself to do whatever he wants. And then on that 31st day, he starts over again. And those periods of 71 days have added up to a specific number of cycles that will end on his 40th birthday, I believe.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So he's been in the midst of this, and he earned sufficiently to be able to take time out to do this, to explore this, to make this his sort of expedition into the wild jungles of Borneo or some other seemingly unknown place, and just consider what life is about and what the impacts of, I would say, your thinking is, and the ability to alter that state of consciousness or awareness at the same time. So we spent a lunch recently talking about this at depth, and many of the people that I deal with in the discussion are sober, so they have some experience with the idea of coming to terms with some of these seemingly lockstep ideas that we have that seem to be impossible to let go of, and yet have had recovery sufficient to notice that when they started thinking about them accurately, whatever the thought was they were having about the symptom that they were abusing, whatever the drug was, whatever the alcohol, whatever it was, gambling, whatever it is, it all tracks back to an idea about that thing that isn't true. So when I lie about something, I tend to act, when I think something is true that's not true, I tend to act in ways to try to prove the lie is true, because the idea of living with the lie is impossible since the basis of existence is based on truth. It immediately causes a disruption in my own experience that becomes obvious. And if I look at it accurately, I can read the signs and simply say, I'm doing something, I'm thinking about something that is not right as right. I'm thinking about something that's false as true. I'm thinking about what is wrong as right. I'm creating the conflict and trying to escape it into all these other substances. But that's a little bit about me. And seeing that we're here with Moein, I want to invite you and welcome you and thank you again for the third conversation we're diving into.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
This is fun for sure.
So we started today just talking a little bit about this and talking about this sort of obsessive necessity that occasionally comes up in thinking about thinking, and thinking about being offended was the one thing you mentioned, which I think is an interesting concept, that today so many people seem to be offended, and there doesn't seem to be any conversation about the fact that you can't be offended if you're not defensive. That offense is always a combination of defense, just like right isn't always a combination with wrong, and good is a combination of bad. That sense of dualism isn't really dualistic until we see it. The impact of it doesn't become dualistic until we take a point, we take a stand on I'm only going to be good, when in fact good is based on bad. So there's probably a chance that's never going to really happen. I can say I'm always going to be good, but any inference that's not right is going to feel very, very bad when I take that position, rather than recognize it's just one is the possibility of the other. And I don't have any obligation to be anywhere on that spectrum, but anywhere on that spectrum I choose to be, I'm going to create resistance to all the other things on that spectrum, thinking where I am is right, where I am is where I should be, rather than seeing that it's just a choice I made. And I can be and am on all other points of that spectrum when I simply free myself from the idea that I'm bound to where I think I should be.
Yeah.
Should's a big word, because if we're talking in the present about what we should be doing, we're trying to claim that what we're doing isn't what's happening. Like something else should be happening. Well, if what we're doing in the present, that's all that's happening. Whether it should or not is irrelevant if it's happening. And it can create a major rift in considering doing anything. When I'm constantly thinking about what I shouldn't be doing, I'm also thinking I shouldn't be where I am. I shouldn't have what I have. I should have more or less of something else. I should be somewhere else with someone else. And generally, the someone else I'm looking for is the true self, because I'm thinking about who I am as all I think, and recognizing I know better than to think that's who I am. And yet I'm addictively committed to this idea that I think I'm going to someday straighten out and get there, when in fact, if truth is true, it's exactly where I am, where you are now. Can't be anywhere else. It's always now, it's always here. So where is there to go?
About truth and a lie, some of them, I think it's like the pen, it drop goes down. So is it the truth? Like how many times I do this, gonna go down, and gonna go down, and gonna go down. And if I come to you and say, hey Jack, I drop the pen and it goes up, and then you're gonna tell me this is the lie because I dropped it and it went down. So
well, if you're standing on your head, you'd be right.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can play with it in any way you want.
But again, it kind of reveals.
Jump jack and jump from the dive and like do a couple of flips and come down. You can play with it any way you want.
The point is that things can appear to be certain ways and still not be those certain ways they appear. And if thoughts are imagined, which I would say they are, then how things appear is just what we think about them. It's not how things are. So it's great about gravity in terms of almost a metaphor for any absolute state of presence that exists, like truth and reality, is that it always works. It doesn't seem to be occasional, part-time, sometime. It's a guaranteed, assured, reliable function of this 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional seeming world we're in, 3-dimensional, however it is.
Okay.
It just seems to work, right?
Yes, so exactly. So because it's something that like people have some like not clear about it. You know, some people, they think that Earth is flat, and still like we have a lot of people that like against these like truth that it exists, is a fundamental of this universe that we are in it. And so that what I'm saying, that there's one category of truth that is about the law of nature that we are living in, and which eventually we try to explore and make sense out of it and take it like make it airplane, you know, like out be using those truth to fly. But also there is some level of truth about stuff that is fundamentally based on the experiences. For example, Moses, Muhammad, Jesus, all these prophets, they had like one ideology, and based on the action they did for those people now consider as a truth, even though there is no way to test it. And also there is another like truth or lie about like moving on with like daily function. Like you say, like, how are you doing? And I say I'm good. At the same time, I'm not doing good. I don't feel good. So this is like,
I would say that's the test, though.
What test?
Function. As you mentioned, the laws of nature are laws of order, and nature operates on those laws perfectly.
Yeah, so we're done. I think we're talking about the lie and truth.
Yes.
Right. So
you said it's hard. It's hard. You said it's hard to tell. I think you said
it's not. It's not hard to tell for nature if you are a good witness and you repeat that witness enough amount of time, you get to the conclusion that this is the truth, and I don't have any power to go against it unless like use my like come up with a tool. Like we cannot like dive down a gravity unless we build an engine and go against the gravity, go up.
Well, but we're still not getting rid of gravity. We're just countering.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like that what I'm saying. Like
we're fighting it effectively.
Yeah, I mean, not fighting, just playing with it. Like,
well, imagine the force that's involved in escaping gravity. It's enormous.
Yeah, exactly. We go against of that thing. But lie, like thinking and lying to ourselves, I think is a lot about like emotion again. Like we try to lie, we try to sometimes to convince our behavior. Like, I did it and it was right and it was truth in it because I go with my instinct. But
you end up with doubt.
Yeah, and then you end up with doubt and say, okay, what is the truth in it? Maybe I was lying to myself all this thing, and I was living in my imagination, and there is nothing out there. There is nothing or inside. There is a pure like we are like a machine. Like
So I'm going to propose something,
Mm-hmm.
and just something to consider, and we can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
If we're thinking we're lying to ourselves,
mm-hmm.
and the self we're lying to is a self we think is who we are, because when we think about our thinking of itself thinks up a self born in thought, then the self we're lying to when we think it's who we are is a lie. So lying about what we do to that self and for that self would be natural and never enough, because it would be born in the constant interpolation of trying to outlie oneself. And I would suggest that this has been a historic miscalculation, misuse of thought through human history to allow people to get to points where self-indignation, literally the indignation of this self that is fighting so hard to be right, true, and real, but never can be, becomes so righteous because it's wrong to think that way, that it is justified killing and oppressing and suppressing other people throughout human history and today too.
Okay.
So if the self at the core of the lie that we're lying to ourselves is a lie, of course we're lying to ourselves. We're going to constantly try to act in ways that are going to try to fix it because we make believe it's true, it's real. And if we're making believe something that isn't true and real is real and true.
So what are we lying about again?
That like, who we are is what we think.
Why?
Why are we lying about it?
Uh-huh.
I suspect because it can seem real and we can think it's real. You know, when I think about you, I don't think about being you. I think about you somewhat independent from me. We may share many of the same traits, but I think about you. When I think about my arm, I think about my arm. When I think about my eyes that I can't even see, I can't see my eyes but in reflection. And yet when I think about them, I have a pretty good idea of what they look like, and I have a good idea of what they do because they see. But I don't think I become my eyes. And yet when I think about my thinking, all of a sudden I think it becomes who I am. And I would say that's a big leap and just simply a misuse of thought. Now, thinking is certainly capable of imagining who I am and considering who I am and thinking about who I am. Those are all things it can do, certainly. But the idea that it concludes who I am and creates who I am is the idea that I'm the creator of truth and reality. And then all of a sudden, anything that doesn't line up to that thinking becomes offensive to me because the nature of the self I think I am is built on defense of an idea that isn't true, because all lies are effectively defense against truth and an attempt to create truth in the name of being truth, when in fact, truth doesn't need any help. If truth is true, it's just what it is.
Yeah, but the reason I will lie, I mean, there's two, like one, you're conscious about your lying, or sometimes like you don't know the truth and you think that is the truth.
Yes.
So in the first scenario that you know that you lie, is it like, which one is it? Is it like we know?
Well, I would say they're both. That's a very good observation, and I suspect it's often missed. But my suspicion is it's the effect is the exact same effect, whether we think we're doing it or we don't think we're doing it. But the point you're making is really beginning to look at the fact that we can think we're not doing what we're thinking. And I would say that's our subconscious. That's what we call our subconscious. While admitting it consciously, we're admitting we're conscious of a subconscious. It must mean we're aware of something we're doing that we don't think we're doing. And maybe that's the convenience of deception and lying, to pretend what I'm doing isn't what I'm doing. I would say that's a huge impact on mental health, to maintain ideas like that.
Okay.
So when you mention the doubt is earned, tends to, my experience is people tend to often be in doubt.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to be looking for certainty, stability, comfort, ease, something that stays still for a moment. And my sense is, because I'm so committed when I am to the thinking I do about my thinking, which is always changing, that I wouldn't notice the disturbance and the defensiveness and the denial and the doubt. I wouldn't notice it if I didn't have an absolute stable knowing source. So when you said it's hard to see, I would say the disturbance is in fact the vision, the clear vision or the clear awareness that we know something's wrong. We talk about it. We say we know something's wrong. We think about what we should have done, while in fact there's nothing we can ever do about what we did. And all we're struggling with is the thought we're having about what was done now. It's always happening in the present.
Okay.
Simple as that. That's easy. I mean, it really, life is life. Truth is true. Reality is reality. They're not questionable except to thoughts. They're not in doubt except to thoughts thinking about what they think of reality and truth and life, rather than what life and reality and truth actually are.
Yeah, I mean, you have two options. Just look at as lie is a good thing, or lie is a bad thing, or don't even label it. Like,
well, I would say it isn't even a thing, because it doesn't happen anywhere outside of a brain. So if mental health is an issue today, which I would say it's one of the primary issues, and we're thinking things that don't exist, like a self that doesn't exist other than an imagination is truth and reality, we are creating and compounding illness, dis-ease, discomfort, a lack of functional capacity in our own experience in the name of trying to prove something is wrong with us in a greater way than simply acknowledging it's what we're thinking that is causing those problems. We haven't looked at it honestly, as far as I can tell, historically. There are people who are looking at it better, closer, but it's still being discussed as though ego is real, as though this self needs to be fixed. We need to feel better about it. And by feeling better about something that I do that's worse tends to create an impossible experience of disturbance, chronic disturbance, and anxiety and stress and depression from the impressions made, acting as though they're real. They're just illusions. There's nothing wrong with illusions. There's nothing wrong with imagination. As a matter of fact, it's one of our highest capacities to imagine and innovate and create. And yet when we make believe it's true, all of a sudden it has the exact opposite impact on us, creating dysfunction and inability and disability as a result. So the whole basis of a lie is that it's trying to be the one thing it can't be, which is true. So even in a lie, it's claiming it doesn't exist because it's only trying to be what it can't. And it only is a lie as long as that claim is made by a thought, by a thinker. Who's the culprit? I am. My choice to think that. Nobody else ever imposes that on me. If we have free will, we make those choices. And that's the primary thing we control. And to create an environment that seems out of control is a choice. It isn't an inevitable plight. It isn't a doomed existence. It isn't a hateful creator. It isn't a consequence of anything other than the immediacy of what I'm thinking. Nobody else, while everybody else is interacting around me and I am interacting with everybody else and everything else, it is the conclusions I make about those interactions that I am impacted by most. To think it's all about them is to miss what I'm doing with what they're doing.
Okay. So if we shut down our thinking, we don't lie anymore?
No, we're perfectly capable of doing whatever we want to do, including killing ourselves, which is pretty evident given the numbers are rising. Those are options. We're free to do that, but we don't tend to do those type of things when we're thinking healthy thoughts. They tend to come from sick thoughts that those things occur because we're trying to kill the body. We're trying to kill the self we're afraid to face and admit is causing all the problems. So the fear of that self that's born in fear, because we know it's not who we are, becomes the excuse we use to kill the body to think we're going to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, there's one less body here to solve the problem and to be an example and to grow and develop and offer and be an expression of abundance rather than scarcity. Suicide is the final act of self-control. And the self that we're trying to control is the one that we imagine ourselves to be, not who we actually are. So it's a sad consequence, I would say.
I don't know. Is it sad or no?
Hmm?
I don't know if it's a sad thing or not.
Well, I would say for most people close, it tends to be. And for those of us who are far away, we think we're not affected by things that aren't close because we tend to be numb to what's happening in so many ways in our immediate vicinity to even make believe that we can get better about lying and think that we're better as a result. That would be a fairly significant form of ignorance in my experience.
It's a choice.
Hmm?
It's a choice.
Yes, exactly.
Like there's, I don't know. I don't. I mean, like if somebody happily come to the conclusion that they want to end his living, so why not? I mean,
It's pretty seldom that that's the case, though. Normally, it's people who think there's no other choice, which is an addiction. It's an
oh,
indication.
in that case, probably yeah. Let's
Yeah,
end
it's an
up with.
indication that something's sick, something's ill. We talk about, if we get a runny nose, we say, I'm sick. I don't feel well. We get running thoughts, we tend not to mention it. And so what do? They run on and on and on and on, and we work on them, try to get
But
alone,
I
try to get away
still
from
think
people.
I don't think it's like I don't think it's like an addiction. It's because I'm going through these addiction thinking for last 29 times, right?
Yeah.
Like basically at the end of my 31 days, I'm addicted, pretty hardcore person to a lot of stimulus,
Yeah.
right? From the morning I wake up all the way to whatever I pass out at night. Sometimes I don't remember. Um, so I'm getting in and out, right? I'm getting in and out to just understand like where is all this desire for external thing coming from. And I still came to this conclusion that like the reason I get addicted is my feeling of like, like you sit right now here and you wake up, and so you might not be happy for so many number of reasons. One, you didn't sleep well at night and you're grumpy. Two, you have a past due of your rent and you don't have money and you're grumpy. Three, your partner next to you like doesn't have a good day and you're not happy, and just whatever reason. So in that reason
All choices, though, right?
to feeling not necessarily because sometimes there is a bomb next to exploded and you're not happy, and
Well,
then
if you set the bomb, you might be happy.
you
So
said
it's a choice of consequence. It's a factor of how we think of things that we come to those determinations.
I mean, if it, like your hand got like bleeding, like you're not happy. If it's like that wasn't my thing, yes, this is like, so you're not happy because you're bleeding and you go die.
Right.
And so all of these, when you are not in the state of happy, so you have a couple of options. You want, so you don't want to be in that state for sure. First of all, as people that I know, they don't want to be in a state of like not happy and sad and sorrow. So what would you do? What would you do? Some people, I don't know, call a friend and talk to them. Some people have a coffee, maybe feel better. Some people go to work and get busy with whatever they're doing and kind of a little bit maybe a bit better. Some people go work out. Some people take a THC, 10 milligram of THC gummy, and then it's all right. It's like a feeling is good. So I think happiness.
Do you see that feeling better about it
Mm-hmm.
only
Oh,
is an effect of feeling, and feeling is an effect of thought.
yeah, for sure.
So the thought is being avoided in the name of feeling.
Not really avoided. Like if I don't like that is it is what it is. It actually you are very in the flow. Like It's not ignored of at all. This is just a life. It's like there's so many things it will affect your happiness. Like just the biggest smile, like next to you, can make you happy. Not necessarily thinking of like logically 2 + 2 involved. This is into biology. Like when you see like a straight white teeth smiling next to you, you're instantaneously you feel good.
But it's relative to what you think. If you were in a coma and those things happened, what would happen?
In the coma, somebody smile. Maybe you have a better dream in the coma. I don't.
Yeah, that may be. Yeah,
I don't know. Like I haven't been in the coma and somebody smile at me.
But either way, it's a dream. And maybe that makes the point that the thoughts we imagine to be true that create the conditions we want to get over and want to feel better about, rather than looking at the fact.
All of them.
What's that?
All of them. It's pretty like that is like a tool of us to just how to execute in that direction. So feeling, I'm sure there is a consequence of like a lot. Like it's a moment, right? In the moment, and so every moment, and like you're feeling good, and sometimes like you feel bad. Like this is like, yeah, the thoughts can make you feel bad, but not necessarily always thought that will make you feel bad. I think a lot of them is just because we, as a living thing, we grow and we mature and we get old and we die. And so in this process, a lot of them is about breaking our body down and like pain and all these things. So it's not necessarily like a matter of thinking, like it's just a matter of the not happy and pain is a matter of just a living. I don't think it's just that
much. So you think you think life hurts?
Oh yeah,
no. Do you think that life, not life forms, do you think life as an essential life force hurts? Do you think it suffers?
Yeah, I think that is start with destruction from the moment that we are born.
We what?
The destruction starts from the moment that we are born.
What is destroyed?
We destroy our mother. That is all about like blood and pain and reshaping, deformation, and all these things. That's how we start. It's basically with pain. Like we start the life with fucking like maxi extreme pain that we are inputting on our mother.
But that's a life form experience. That's a product of life.
But it's pain. Like that you cannot like deny that it's not pain. So this is life by itself. We need to destruct to feed ourselves. We need to kill to feed ourselves. We need to consume to grow up. So, and that consuming and destruction and stuff, we're gonna input some pain to other living thing. So, but it's not that much of a thought, like if somebody shut down the thought and constantly just live, so it goes probably go to pain. And like
do you remember your mother's pain at birth?
Thanks God, no.
But think about that. You weren't thinking then. You didn't witness it. There was no thought to register it.
But I was crying. So probably I wasn't in some sort of discomfort that I was trying. So even though my thought wasn't involved, I'm not happy for some reason.
Well, you're presuming you were crying.
I mean, like based on like a doctor, so that is like a pretty much simple thing. If you smile, you're happy. If you cry, you're sad.
But what's interesting,
we don't have anything more than that.
To help with this, babies are not quite thinking yet, and yet they know to cry to get what they want for their own needs.
Exactly. So there's
a greater sense of awareness.
Not necessarily survival.
Well, what would it be surviving if it weren't aware of the difference?
You don't need to be aware of difference to cry for your survival.
Well, I would say it's a manifestation of what is needed to cry for. Babies tend to cry for food. They tend to cry to get their diapers changed. They tend to cry when they get cold. They tend to cry when they're in need of something. It's a knowingness.
So that this
It's
is
built
like
into
who
our
we are,
system.
right? This is
Excuse
who
me?
we are. This is like a who we are right now. Like when
Well,
we started from there, right?
it's more essence. It's more mentioning that thinking is something we start doing as we grow older, and knowing is something we've always done and always will do. That knowing is an absolute state of being and presence. And that isn't something that comes with thinking. That is something that is naturally inherent in every living thing, everything that seems to be alive and everything that doesn't seem to be alive, like inanimate objects. They have the exact same life force in each one of them. It's different in terms of the chemical makeup, perhaps, and the function of what they're doing, but they're all doing all those inanimate objects that we don't think out there know exactly what to do based on that same life that would be life, not a life form, not a life and death experience, but actually life that has no beginning, no end, that isn't part of the fourth dimension of time and space, that is something that's pervasive in the universe and probably beyond because it doesn't function in time or space, something that is fundamental to existence.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Because the only thing I haven't been to, I haven't like
Sure you have.
lived in I mean, as far as I remember, I've never like been in like different like sort of reality and still function and still be conscious and I still have will to pick, to choose like what to do.
Have
It's
you
like
have you ever experienced something like a car accident that was a severe experience that pulled your experience so far beyond your thoughts that time seemed to stand still and things slowed down and there was a bit of clarity to the moment?
I mean, yeah, I don't need car accident. I just go to the ocean and it will get me to that clarity.
So you're aware of it.
Yeah, it's like kind of flow, like a state of flow when you're in and you don't need to waste your time to choose and with a pretty high certainty, you know what is right to do in every action.
Yeah. So that what I would say is an intuitive knowing sense. And intuition is knowledge beyond reason. It's something that's beyond thinking. And it
Yeah,
isn't
but
really beyond it because it's also within it. It can't be beyond something that it isn't spatially bound to.
yeah.
So part of the look in this, the consideration of this is starting to see that it is our knowing nature that we know that gives us the clarity of knowing what's wrong when something's wrong, and what's uncomfortable is uncomfortable, and what's disturbing is disturbing, and what's doubtful is doubtful. It is a present, knowing, stable awareness that we have that allows for those distinctions to even be noticed, because if they were normal and absolutely our experience, they would not hurt. They would not seem out of place. Pain, if it did hurt, would feel like a high point rather than a low point.
So
Pain is actually an indication that something's wrong. It's pointing to attention needed, just like a baby crying asks for attention for the needs they can't quite satisfy at that point.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is they know someone will respond without even thinking about it. They just know they're going to be taken care of for the most part, so much so that we have almost 8 billion people. Certainly there have been exceptions to that comment, but for the most part, it's worked.
So, okay, but not necessarily, again, like this pain is not related to thoughts.
I would say when mental anguish, when we are thinking about things that aren't true, and we are causing fear by creating an idea that isn't true, we are living with anxiety and stress and the pain of those things. This is not now the kind that somebody hits you with a baseball bat and you feel your arm is broken. And even in those instances, adrenaline comes to our rescue and avoids us having to feel the enormity of the pain. It gives us some relief from that. But you know where pain is registered? In the brain. It's not registered in your foot when the nerves tell the brain something's wrong when you stub your toe. It's all in the brain.
Okay.
So the mental anguish we're discussing, I would say, is directly related to thinking about things that aren't true, that are based on fear because we know they're not true. And we know that we're challenging truth and reality. We know that we're actually instinctively going to start doing things that are going to corrode our ability and undermine our instincts to survive and start to actually threaten the life that we claim to be leading. And to your point earlier that addiction, it isn't addiction. I agree with you because addiction is a lie based on the idea that it's the only possibility and the only choice. And if it were the only
don't think it's
choice,
a lie. Like again, what I said, like you're when you're sad, so which the source can be thinking, and the source can be thinking. The source can be pretty like the reason that the kid is crying. It doesn't have to do anything with the thought processing. I mean, it would they take you to some action, but the source of not
the
being
crying
happy,
is the action, though.
but yeah, but the source of being happy, not necessarily thinking always. I'm not saying it's not always. There
But
is a
crying doesn't necessarily mean the baby is sad. It means it wants something.
what do you that is the meaning of sad. Like if I don't give you water and you don't drink water, so you're gonna be happy or you're gonna be sad.
I'm just suggesting for a baby, it may not be they're witnessing emotion, but simple need that
I
they're
don't think I think the emotion of baby starts from way before that.
maybe.
Not development in babies that can start when they're in their mom womb.
I think the lack of emotion is what they're basically witnessing is sort of the blissful state of not having the conflicted potential emotions that we seem to have as a result of thinking.
Mm.
But to any degree,
okay,
this can be wrong. It's possible. It isn't to say all of what I'm talking about is correct, but I would suggest that the immediacy of the problems we have in modern society, the present problems we're struggling with, are largely being caused by ideas that aren't true, being acted on as though they are true. And as a result, we are compelled to be defensive and aggressive and vain in our attempts to prove them right. So redoing and redoing and redoing and repetitiously, chronically maintaining the actions we take, thinking someday it will get better, is a very, very destructive form of interaction because it's interreaction. It's an interreactive capacity that ends up undermining our ability to actually respond to circumstances as they actually are, rather than only as we think they are. So you mentioned it's not an addiction, and I would say you're right. The addictive tendency that's created is simply a tendency when I think a thought that isn't true is true, I've created a need for constant attention. If I want to ever think that thought has the possibility of truth, I need to think about it all the time to keep it going. Because it's only in thought that it's maintained, and it's only in present thought that I'm maintaining it right now. It's not somewhere else, some other time. It's now that I'm doing it. So I feel that often the future's doomed when it's what I'm doing presently that's doomed. And compulsions are suicidal tendencies, every one of them. They're outward acts trying to escape that inner misery that we can create in the obsessive thinking. And what are they? They're never healthy. I know nobody to overdose from broccoli or asparagus.
You could.
You certainly could. Yeah. I think people meet their threshold and say, that's enough. I've had enough. Whereas in the sicker things we do, we don't think enough is ever enough, which sort of indicates more and more and more and more may solve the problem when it never does. And that's how overdoses happen. We don't think it's happening. So we think it's accidental, and it's not accidental.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plan. We're fucking with things that are life-threatening and acting as though they're not, and it couldn't happen to us. And what happens? Exactly what happens to so many others. Unexpectedly. Doesn't mean it's an accident. It means that we don't talk about it honestly. So we want to write it off as something that isn't quite the culpability of the person who did it. So we can all continue to maintain the same ideas that we have that aren't true.
Well, okay. Well, let's go back to my addiction.
Okay.
So addiction. During that 31 days, I'm wake up, and so I have choices to become like even like feel better, right?
Right.
Like you feel better. And so I have these choices. I have choices to go sit meditate or like go to ocean or like be productive, like learn something, like discipline myself, or just take something and don't move your ass and just be happy. So or a combination, like take something that make you feel good and do some stuff that make you like become like in better mood. What I found in that 31 days of I'm getting addicted to stuff, to chemical, and also in a degree of social life and seeing other people, because if you're with a good crowd and friend that make you happy, or at the like a, just any or even sex, sex can make you happy, or what else? So chemical, like social life, like anything that like you by yourself you cannot, you feel that if you take those things that would make you happier. And the reason I'm like getting into this stuff, because simply it just feels good. It feels like it changed a reference, like oh, because those chemical exist in those things, or like human being that involved, like they say something, it activates one part. If it's like in line with my desires and my ideology, probably make me happy. And if it's not in line with my desire and dream and my ideology or belief system, probably will make me a little bit upset. And in the addiction thing is happening is the easy, it's easy, like the chemical thing is the easiest form of our changing our mood. If I'm going to change my mood with meditation, I need to sit and breathe and spend some time and do some effort. If I'm going to be happy with study, I need to sit and focus and study. If I'm going to be happy with workout, I need to go move my body. But with drug or these kind of sources, you don't need to use that much of an energy. You just take it and it's like you feel different.
But you're effectively treating the symptom of how you feel, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, the point is, if how you feel is based on thinking at all, then treating the symptom is an avoidance of the thinking that's causing the mood to give you the impression you need to feel better then. And that becomes an impossible cycle. Tell me, in relation to that, what about your first week once you're done with this full-on satisfaction, gratification, feeling better period? First day of that, second day of that, third day of that. We talked about that at lunch, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of days is pretty like, because I've been doing this for 29 times. So
how many years so far?
Like almost less than 6 years, 5 years and 9 months or something.
It's a good track record.
Yeah, because it's 6 years. Yeah, like 5 years and 9 months. First couple of days is, so one thing is just I know it's done. I know that like giving myself to those source of happinesses is gone. And the first couple of days is pretty simple, like workout, eat, sleep, workout, eat, sleep.
So your body feels tired.
Meditate. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say to me, that would be a signal that while you're feeling better, your body's being taxed by that feeling. You're paying a tax by that for that feeling.
Yeah, sure.
So what about day 4 and 5, 3, 4, 5, 6?
The first couple of weeks is almost the same. The first couple of weeks, it's I'm just recovering and coming up with a challenge and to see what I'm gonna do with this 40 days. So, and then after a week, I'm pretty physically. I don't need it. Actually, it's fine. Like after the 31 days finish, I really don't want to do any drugs. Like I'm done.
Right.
Like 31 days, like a straight every day, because that is kind of my personality. So if I do something extreme, I will be away for some time. So after that 31 days that I'm doing a straight all this thing, I really don't want to do anything. I really miss.
So it's relief
those.
rather than withdrawal almost.
Yeah. Like it's like I'm looking forward to go to that 40 days. I'm looking forward to experience those zen without needing anything, just living and having my mood and happiness in my control a little bit, like because when you're on drug stuff, obviously you're more optimistic. When you're optimistic, you dream about positive thing, right? Like you see, the world's gonna be work for me, and I'm gonna reach to my dream because you're happy. And then when that 40 days ahead, that you go back to your logical thinking a little bit, and your mood is like you wake up in the morning and you're not happy, and you can't drink coffee or weed to make you happy. So what you gonna do? Let's clean the house. Maybe it makes me happy, or like go to the beach to make me happy. So these kind of thing has and the thoughts comes and say, oh, now you're not that optimistic anymore because you're sad. Oh, what about all
so
I'm doing?
The substance of your circumstance is used to give you a better impression of happiness. Going to the beach,
and it's like
meditating,
because and it just life, like these chemical or not chemical or every sort of like happiness, it is organic. It is what it is. This is exists. It's a matter of the tool that you use to get to your dream, or in this game that you come up with a game and like play in it. And like these video games, you go open something and like you take it, and then now you help you pass that game, like that part of the game, and then new step like now. So this is how I look at it. This is like every possibilities that around me is included drugs or like everything. I'm not black and white about it. I'm about like if you can use it and it kind of help you to get to your dream. And risky, probably you're taking some sort of risk, but at the end is a choice that like everybody, we should have it available, I think, for everybody. And at the end, if they're going to use it or they don't want to use it, it is a matter of like experience and education.
So a question. Does it seem to make sense that if you go to the beach and do things when you're not taking substances, that there is an effect being caused on your chemical makeup that your body is producing that offers the exact same benefits naturally?
What benefits? What benefits?
Well, you're saying you feel happy.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's some chemical process going on that actually triggers it simply by doing things that are, you even are looking forward to it from what I'm hearing, which is, to me, that sense of clarity is probably a little more profound than the sort of artificial sense of experience that you have when the chemicals are going to induce the experience as an imposition on your experience rather than as one that you're choosing in the immediacy of the moment. The chemicals will last in your system for a while and have an effect, whereas the chemicals you're creating in your body are being affected immediately by what you're thinking and what you're doing presently all the time.
I don't know about clarity, because like sometimes I'm on a drug and I feel pretty clear, having more clarity than like seeing stuff than like when I'm not on drug and I see.
Well, it's pretty much always the case when anyone's drunk driving, they think they're not drunk. People get into accidents, are surprised to find out that they blow a 2.0 or whatever it is that would be.
Yeah, I mean, drugs is a lot about like emotion, right? Like, is some people like have a good level of happiness by default and in their DNA and all this thing, and some people they're not that, because like being happy is really healthy with learning process, with like motivation to do any action and all these things. So if I know somebody by default they're born and they're just laughing all the time, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know but for some people they need to maybe like hormone imbalance or something, like make them not that much happy, and maybe these thing, drugs or external sort of happiness, like maybe help them.
Our ability to deceive ourselves is pretty well recognized. And my sense is a lot of people who laugh, I use comedy growing up to cover the trouble, the pain that I was feeling and the upset that I was feeling, and thought that I was extremely funny when I probably wasn't for that purpose. So I think we can be extremely deceptive in our attempts to modify what we are often unwilling to actually look at honestly. And my experience has been that the ability to actually look at what's happening as it's happening has had the greatest freeing aspect on my experience than anything I ever took or anything I ever did, because it has allowed my body to actually witness those times for what they are, rather than what I think of them, to see them in a broader sense than only what I'm thinking. And that would include the ideas I have about myself. But it does not mean at the same time that those things, the depression and all those ideas, go away, because I would say seeing clearly into the world is to see a lot of things that are depressing and are disturbing and are upsetting that are happening right now. And that clarity, my sense is the best chance to do something productively, rather than just think doing anything is all I need to do to feel better about it and kind of ignore what's actually happening. So I think it's enviable that you're taking this on and also able to restrict your use after that 30-day period and step into that other period of time and have the clarification and the distinction without feeling by choice, and see that it is a choice, rather than think the only choice is to continue doing the drugs and the drugs and the drugs and the drugs.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, it's, for me, is not, I wouldn't like pick that path to be every day after I finish this cycles, like I would never like live with everyday external happinesses, because at the end of my 31 days I'm a little bit confused, because like every day you get to those level of like different like stimulus to your body, so the level of thoughts is happening to you, and the level of interaction you're having with, like, because I'm very social in that 31 days. Like, I've seen maybe in that 31 days I will have like a deep interaction with people, maybe more than like 50, 60, 70 people in that 31 days, which is like every single of those interactions is deep. in even like a short amount of time. And so every exchange of information with one human being happens, so we'll add something to that thinking process. And by the end of that 31 days, because one, I'm like constantly on stimulus, and like I have this huge source amount of a stranger. My door was open that came to my life, and I share the deepest and like with them. So it will be heavy. So actually and then at the end I don't want to do drugs at all. Like I want to just switch to that the other side. And for me is the one thing like somebody like maybe this is the optimum way up for me for this training, like for me it's like something that like postponing the reward. I've read something, or is a good thing actually, like to postpone the reward and like gain for it, and like you see like I earned it, so it gave you some self-satisfaction.
Well, it also, my suspicion is in self-gratification and this sort of immediacy of trying to always fix something is an admission that something's always broken. And if the possibility of that postponement gives us a chance to look at what we're doing to cause the dissatisfaction that we want the satisfaction to fix, it's probably beginning to look at the cause of the problem and what we're thinking, rather than simply thinking of the effect of the problem caused by the thinking as being the problem. It seems to me that pause in sobriety, there's a quote in the book that says, restraint to pen and tongue, which would be to pause, stop for a minute before the action occurs, before the instigative, reactive, impulsive, compulsive action occurs. And often that simple stop evaporates the entire need, because all that it was a knee-jerk reaction to something that seemed so necessary, when in fact it was just the immediacy of the reactive nature of fear attempting to act its way out and effectively cause more and more and more of the same fear, same reactivity. So it sounds like your awareness of that is clear enough and supersedes the preoccupation you have with altering your experience during the drug period. It seems like it stays there and is there and aware. And my suspicion is we're always aware, no matter what we do. There are experiences. I'm reading through a book now by a guy named Dr. Bruce Grayson back in University of Virginia, where he talked about near-death experiences. And one of the first ones he ever had with a woman who was in a coma from a drug overdose, she described to him 2 conversations he had with her girlfriend that were 100 feet out of the room that she was in. Mm-hmm. And she was fully induced in a whatever they give her to help, her whatever the drugs were. So it didn't affect this knowing awareness that she had in a situation that was well beyond what she probably expected. So being beyond the limits of her thought all of a sudden seemed to announce this awareness that was so profound that she was able to witness him, and he couldn't make sense out of it at all, and now has made a 50-year career on studying near-death experiences, which he says are pretty consistent around the world and have been going on since the Greeks, have been written about and documented since the Greeks and others that write. In almost all tribes, all ways of life, all different variations of humans, they're almost identically described or similarly enough to be recognized as something that's consistent between us, which I would say suggests a greater sense of knowing that is probably presently seemingly held at bay by the preoccupation of thinking about ourselves, thinking about all the things we need to do to feel better, when in fact it's what we are doing that is worse, we're trying to avoid, and we end up maintaining, which gives us another false impression that there's something we need to constantly be doing to feel better, rather than begin to allow that greater awareness to become obvious in our present state, which it is, only not to the thinking. that we're doing that's compelled and obsessed and seemingly thinking about itself all the time. What other people think, what I think, and largely what I think about what other people think is what I'm worried about, what they may be thinking about what I'm thinking. Not much more.
Yeah, mindfulness meditation.
Well, I would suggest we're in a constant meditation. We're just not paying attention to what we're constantly doing because we're constantly thinking about what we're thinking. And that would be an addiction. And I'm not sure that everyone suffers from that, but I would say to the degree that we participate in it and don't recognize it as a human problem, we end up contributing to it by ignoring it and not talking about
it. Yeah, I guess we need one of those 40 days for quitting thinking addiction. Or like 30 days.
Well, my sense is the clarity of the moment becomes obvious when we're actually honestly appraising what's happening. And we allow our thoughts just to be doing what they're doing and not thinking about what they should be doing or they could be doing, because to think about what something should be doing is to think that what is happening shouldn't be happening, when all that's ever happening is, in fact, exactly what's happening. Whether the thought is right or wrong is irrelevant. It's what we do with it that causes the conflict if we're not willing to allow it to simply be. We have no start point to deal with when we're constantly thinking it should be somewhere else, when in fact the start point never leaves because it's always beginning anew in the present moment.
Mm. Okay. Cool.
So you have how many more days left in this cycle?
Like 13.
And you're leaving to go home soon too.
I'm close to leaving my home here actually. Go to another home. Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting because it's been 10 years.
Has it been that long since you saw your mom and dad?
No, I saw my mom and dad in like this summer. The whole family. This was my brother's wedding.
Right. So, back east.
Yeah, in Canada.
Yeah.
But it's been 10 years that I've been to Iran. And I'm very excited because like childhood, friends, family, like I can be in the home with my mom and dad that I grew up. So like lots of history and taking care of them. And I'm thinking about having a 1-month road trip.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be exciting because I've never done a road trip Iran. When I was younger, I wasn't into like road trip and this kind of thing. But now I'm planning to go understand more about like a people, culture, see stuff. So I'm gonna get there in my last 5 days on my freedom, which is good because like the day after I arrive, it's gonna be my sister's birthday, and I'm planning to have a surprise birthday for her. And then my 40 days will start, which that's the time I'm planning to go on a trip actually, because if I'm there, I already like 6, 7, 10 people love me, call me from Iran and they say, we heard you're gonna come, you're gonna spend time with us and we're gonna do this and that and that and that. So and they all mean party, and I know if I'm my 40 days is gonna be disappointed them because I'm not gonna do anything and they wanna do a lot of things. And so the best way to be gone. So I'm planning that 40 days, maybe like 30 days, just go on a road trip in, and I will come back. And it's gonna be Persian New Year. It's around March 21st, which like a week before my freedom start again. And then push it the last party all the way to, and after like April 4th, I will come back. I will come back, hopefully new version.
Well, I applaud your effort to face a difficult time in your home country and show up anyhow, and look forward to, let's continue to stay in touch while you're there, since availability worldwide now is so much easier.
Yeah, for sure.
Happy birthday to your sister, a hug to your mom and dad, and
thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited.
You're a good man. I've appreciated our time together and continue to.
Thank you. No, for sure. Yeah, it's like it's a tough time, and like all the people like from here, I don't know, for me it was like just part of it because my family there. I mean that's a big reason. And just in this hard time for most of people, I feel if I just go and I can use my sense of humor and like bring a smile on people's faces, so I will lift a little bit of pain. So that's a plan, to just add more smile to that region and that people, and like give them the future is bright, and I'm here to just share some of those pain. So this is the whole point of trip, and I'm sure I will. It will make you grow. It will make you grow, and we'll see. We'll see if if that big dream gonna happen or no. But I'm trying.
We can be sure that whatever happens will happen.
Yeah, all good.
And there's where assurance really lies, because what we think and what we expect are very often only based on the idea that my thinking is true and all that should ever happen is what I think, rather than start to see the adventure is in finding what happens as it happens, and see the amount of what the potential of that happening is far greater than I ever imagined, which is that's a different kind of exploration, but it's the same sort of exploration we can do anywhere without having to look any further than where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So traveling sort of augments that potential space travel in our own thinking, our own capacity.
Yeah, I was watching a TED talk. It was talking about disorder. Disorder actually make us to grow.
Yeah.
So if you're constantly in order and everything, like fine and good, which is pretty much like external world of my life, it's no complaint, to be honest. Like,
yeah,
I have a ceiling, I eat, and I have a group of friends that I'm happy with. I can hang out, but this is kind of order. So if I change that disorder, go somewhere that is everything is different, now it's like tension and all this thing. So it helped me to kind of find a new solution, like problem solving, challenge. So that I think that would be helpful for me, and this is my life actually. Cheers.
See you, man. Love you.
No, that was a cheers.
Oh, I didn't see that. I thought you were signing off.
No, I mean we can't go, but I still have time if you want to talk.
So yes, I think failure is probably the only time I ever learn. When I do things right, I just take credit.
That's smart.
But what's interesting is about right and wrong, right always works. So once you know something works, you can always apply it, and you don't need to think much about it. Wrong never works. So they're both guaranteed. Wrong never works, and you can apply it as much as you want, and it will never work. So one is futile. And that would be the idea that turning a lie into truth could be reality is futile. And the other one is easy, and it almost takes no thought. Once you know 2 + 2 is 4, you don't have to go through the rudimentary fundamentals of arithmetic. to come to that conclusion every time you see it, and or all the other conclusions based on that start to become more obvious and immediate.
Uh-huh.
So learning is a natural state for us to any degree we mistake things, see things incorrectly. It's a chance to actually grow, to learn if we're willing, and then realize that the nature of those things has always been fully intact. The law and order of nature has always been perfectly in order. And circumstances are effectively the enforcement wing of nature's laws. Because if I don't act in accordance, I'm going to create circumstances that are depreciated and scarce rather than abundant, as nature tends to be.
Okay.
That it?
I mean,
Sounds like it.
we'll see.